Today I'm going to see if I can make some Pietra pants in 3 hours. I'm just going to lay out all of the pieces to see what I can get out of this scrap of fabric that I've had for a little while. I did use this fabric originally to make some full-size pants, and then I had some left over, so I thought I'd make shorts. So I've just done the interfacing, and now I'm going to cut out the pieces. So I'm using pattern weights, but I'm also using pins so that I can cut out the notches. There are 7 pieces in total for this pattern, and it's the same whether you have the pants or the shorts. They're just a bit longer if you're making the full-size pants. Now with this piece, I started cutting it out and then realised that it wasn't equal on the back. So I had to recut this piece. Still had plenty of fabric to be able to do that, just needed to plan ahead a little bit. And I've also made the adjustments I needed to the pattern pieces before I started and didn't include that in the time to create the pattern. So I did shorten the length of the waist to crotch, and I also changed the crotch curve a little bit, just from past experience with this pattern. I tend to stop and start quite a lot as I work, so this will actually be split up into a few different sections. So you'll see me wearing different clothes because I worked on different days. But I did just have the stopwatch working to make sure it was fair and to make it more like the pattern challenges that you see on Great British Sewing Bee. That little scrap of fabric there is just a piece of fabric I'm using as a pressing cloth as I apply the interfacing to the waistband. And then it took me about 34 minutes until we get to the sewing part. So this, so it's about 34 minutes to cut out and interface. I also had to get my bobbin wound, so that's also factored into the time. This bit is going to go quite fast because I actually made some big mistakes right at the beginning and had to unsew, which you'll see in a little while. So the first thing that you do is you interface the top of the pockets, and then you kind of fold the fabric to make the large pockets at either side before adding the side pieces to finish off the 2 sides of the front, the left and the right. I found that they didn't actually match up, and so I had to go back to the drawing board and see if I could figure it out. I also sewed the fabric the wrong way on the pocket. So this is me unpicking it now, just so that I can re-sew it back together again so all the fabric is right side up. It's quite hard to tell when you've got a solid fabric, but there was a bit of a texture difference. So it does take a bit of time to clean up all of those seams, get rid of all of the bits of thread. And we're over an hour at this point. I'm going to repress everything, rereading my instructions, and then going back to the machine. So as I was sewing these together again, I found that the pieces didn't match. So I was back on the table again, wondering why that was, and it's because when I shortened the pattern pieces, I needed to reduce the pocket in 2 places, and it does say in the instructions, I just didn't read it properly. So I had to unstitch this, refold the pocket so that I could make them a little bit longer than the pattern, so I didn't have to cut any pieces again, and then I could re-sew them back together, and that actually worked quite well. I'm also finishing the seams with just pinking shears to save time rather than having to thread my serger and make sure I had the right colour thread, which I didn't have at the time. So that's why you'll see the pinking shears for seam finishing. So after I tried one and it worked, I unpicked and resewed the second front, and now I have the two front pieces ready. Just going to press them and then top stitch the seam. And then I am sewing the two front pieces together along the crotch seam and finishing that edge, and then I'm going to press that too. And that brings us to 1 hour and 43 minutes. Now I'm just sewing the front of the waistband together, those three sections there. The edge just gets finished on one of the longer edges, and then you attach it to the front of the shorts. Once it's attached, it just needs pressing up towards the waistband area, and then it needs stitching in place with some stay stitching, and it gets pressed and it gets attached at the sides as well, and also secured with some top stitching at the front in the ditch. Next, the two back pieces are sewn together along the crotch curve, and that edge is finished too. And then we press that, and I'm just prepping the back waistband at this point using my hot ruler. You press up one of the sides because it's going to fold down on top and encase that raw edge. Then that gets attached to the back and sewn into place. Again, we press that one, and then the sides are going to be sewn together now so that the front and the back are both one unit. Now I've done that, I'm just finishing off those side seams with my pinking shears. This was quite tough actually. I had to really squeeze it. And at this point I decided to sew a label on, even though it doesn't really have room at the back because of the elasticated waist. I've decided to hand stitch a little label that says pennydog.com on it. Just did it by hand close to the side seam. And now I'm figuring out how to fold the waistband, because the edges of the waistband need to be finished as well, and then it needs to take in the elastic. So there's a bit of a foldy thing you have to do, and you've got to pay attention to the instructions closely at that point. And then we're going to attach one side of the elastic to the back waistband, just in the side seam. And then if you grab a safety pin, it'll make it easy to pull that through as well. This was the tricky bit, kind of stitching in the ditch to catch that folded edge on the inside, but it being neat on the front. I think I did that pretty successfully. And now we're about 2.5 hours into the project. Those mistakes really cost me some time. The elastic is now all the way across in the waistband and secured at the other end, and then you stitch another couple of lines to make it nice and even and give it a professional finish. So once the elastic's sewn, you're going to sew that remaining part of the crotch curve, which also took me a little bit of thinking, and then that's going to get pressed too. And then we're going to hem the bottom of the shorts as the final step. Again, I've got my hot ruler out. And I'm just folding it up 1/2 inch, and then I'm folding it again. I didn't quite understand the instructions when it said half an inch and then an inch. I think it might mean an inch in total, so that's what I went for. And then I'm pinning that in place as well, just to make it easier for me to sew that nice and neatly. So we're over 3 hours now, unfortunately, because of all the mistakes I made. And I'm just sewing those folds at the bottom, the hem of each leg. then give them a good press and they're all done. Took me in total 3 hours and about 8 minutes.